Is there a new sheriff in town? We're going to break it down on the DNVR Broncos Podcast, where the Broncos are back. We're back. Henry's back. Yahir's back. Yours truly, Zach Stevens, is back, coming to you live from the Toyota Lounge inside the DNVR Bar. Toyota, of course, powered by the 4Runner and your local Front Range Toyota stores. Go check them out. And go check us out. Henry, welcome back. After we all had a little long weekend, did you just absolutely hate having that extra day off?
No.
All day yesterday, were you just sitting there being like, why aren't Americans working?
Wow, no. Geez, don't put that on me.
Oh, that's typically the how you view days off.
There was one day in particular that I didn't think was worthy. I thought we could replace with something else. Yeah, I think my girlfriend hated it because it's the first time in a while that we've both had like a long weekend like that. Because even before, it's like the Nuggets or the Avs are playing. Before that, like Sue's basketball team's playing, so she's like gone wherever. Or like before that, like we have things going on. So we hadn't really done that in a while. And I think she got really, really bored of all my favorite activities.
And what are your favorite activities?
I just like to sit on the couch. I'm really happy just to sit there for a couple days and do nothing. Like two of the Rockies games, not all the Rockies games, are like, well, maybe we should go over there. And she was like, I don't know if you really want to. I was like, well, we can get tickets for like $8 and it's like a 5-minute walk. She's like, oh, I don't think so. I was like, okay, then you're choosing the couch again. We went through like a whole season of Survivor.
Wow. Okay,
Yep.
so I would imagine there was some compromise there.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yahtzee was more her idea.
Yeah.
I won I think I won the first 5 in a row.
Wow. So it was her idea, yet you just destroyed her.
I know.
Wow.
It was pretty good. Then last night she got like a 413 or something crazy like that. So she, I don't know. But yeah, basically did
you let
nothing.
her win one.
We ate hot dogs.
Yep. I mean, that's what you do. Now it's the official start of summer. When do you say the official start of summer is?
Playoffs.
No. Opening day.
Opening day is the first day. Yeah.
This more feels like the real start of summer.
I feel like it's been summer. Been going around, going to the bar.
What are you? Rain, clouds. We didn't see the sun for like a week.
Well, that's for all of you who go outside.
That's true.
Yeah, no. It's summer starting with opening day.
So you didn't even know your unofficial start of summer.
No. Well, because it's been so long. It gets fuzzy. Summer starts beginning of opening day. Spring starts beginning of spring training. And then winter starts when it gets cold.
Winter starts when it gets cold.
Or sorry, no. Fall is football. Winter, once it gets cold, sometime in there.
So
certainly before December. December is the winter.
Start of football, do you mean training camp? Do you mean preseason? Do you mean regular season?
Regular season is start of fall.
That's fair.
Yep.
I can buy that one.
And then, honestly, maybe you just have to go like hard. Like December 1st, it is now winter. The thing is, like sometimes the end of November can feel like winter. I know that like official calendar says most of December is not winter.
Correct. Yep. December 22nd.
Which obviously means that calendar's dumb.
At least you've got the Henry calendar for everything to make sense.
Because Thanksgiving can't be winter.
Thanksgiving.
So I really do think
is
it must
not winter.
be December 1st has to be start of winter.
And
so there we go.
As the Toyota chat, which is powered by the 4Runner, is saying TB007 says June 21st is the actual official start of summer. So Henry,
which is crazy.
You start summer like 3.5 months before the rest of the real world.
Because it's just been like, you could walk around with a t-shirt for most of the last couple. Like imagine going outside today where it's probably going to be like 80 degrees and saying, no, it doesn't feel like summer. It's summer.
Imagine going outside wearing a long sleeve quarter zip saying it's summer.
I didn't look at the weather.
For the people listening on the show and not watching over on YouTube, Henry is wearing a long sleeve fleece Columbia quarter zip that looks like it's meant to be worn when it's cold out. And he's trying to make the case that it's summer right now.
It's 69 degrees already. It's going to be 79. It's going to be 83 tomorrow, then 75, 78, 83, 87, 87, 89. That's summer.
Honestly, I feel like I'm the only one dressed appropriately for summer today.
Yeah, you got
shorts and a short sleeve
Wow.
and a hat.
You know, I was told once, and maybe this rule's gone away, but I was told when we were at our old studio, which didn't really have a true studio setup, but when we started doing live shows, I was told, Zach, you got to cut the shorts because, you know,
Yeah.
the cameras, there's angles, and it kind of goes, you see up
Yep.
some shorts. Since then, I just haven't worn shorts, really. So
That's what did it.
no, I haven't worn shorts on the show. I still wear shorts when I'm not
okay.
on the show, but we'll see if that changes
Yeah.
come summertime.
No, I mean, that's what they said initially, like when we first started.
Yeah,
And they're like,
exactly.
well, then just cross your legs. As long as you cross your legs, again, you can still screw it up. Occasionally, like you're looking like, I might need to like get that leg close to the couch, but it's really not that hard.
No, it's not. And Henry, what you said about you and Lexi, how she was like, I'm kind of sick of this right now. That really reminds me of football because I feel like all the time when someone comes out of retirement, specifically a coach, like I remember Gary Kubiak, when he came out of retirement, he was like, yeah, I was home for like a full week. And then my
Yeah.
wife was like, so what are you going to do now with your extra time? And they're like, yeah, my wife just wanted me to go do something, get out of the house a little
Yeah.
bit. So I decided to unretire. And I wonder if Peyton Manning had a similar conversation with his
Wow.
wife, Ashley, because Peyton Manning is retired. Peyton Manning does not have an official role with the Denver Broncos. But Henry, does Peyton Manning have more of a role than we thought? So we heard from Peyton last week, and we're going to play his comments in just a second. But what do you think Peyton's role, before hearing any of his comments, is or was with the Broncos, if any at all?
Help the quarterbacks, regardless of who it is. Like, it starts with like a phone call or like, spoiler, he says he wouldn't play golf with all of them. I'm not sure. We already played that clip. Or he played golf with Stidham. But like just stuff like that. Like be around the quarterbacks. If they have questions, answer their questions. In theory, like if they want a couple hours, give them a couple hours. And then from there, it's more, you know, there's a Wounded Warriors, great organization. They're coming out. Come say hi. No, come say hi. You know, like stuff like that. And then like maybe occasionally somebody will ask him a football question, but I think that would be more Hackett doing that than Sean Payton, but who knows?
So that's really fair. I think that's kind of what everyone thought. And then not only come out when there's a good cause going on, but stop by for one or two training camp practices.
Some during the
I believe
season.
he's been at a training camp every year. Probably not the year after he retired because I think he wanted to give like Trevor and Paxton kind of their time and didn't want to take the spotlight. But since I think 2017, he's been to at least one training camp practice. Occasionally, his dad will come out with him. His kids will also be there at times. And I think last year, maybe it was a year before, or both of those years, he was there like once a week. Or even twice a week, just being on the field, not actually obviously doing any coaching on the field, but there, and it's cool. That's kind of what I thought Peyton's role was. I think that's kind of what everyone's thought Peyton's role was with the Broncos was, damn, it's cool to have him. It's cool for Broncos Country to call Peyton ours, especially when obviously he could do that with Indianapolis, and he doesn't do that with Indianapolis.
Yep.
We know that Peyton lives here full-time. Now, full-time with him, it means he can take a private jet. And pretty much travel the world and go wherever he wants all the time. But he lives here. His kids live here. He coaches his kids' youth sports teams. He's at their games. And then we know he stops by Broncos occasionally. And then the big thing is, like you said, he called Zach Wilson when he got traded here. When the Broncos drafted Drew Lock, he reached out to Drew. He even watched film with Drew Lock. And he's reached out to Bo Nix. He's talked to Jarrett Stidham, played golf with Stidham, and he's done this with pretty much every quarterback that's come to town. Now, the Joe Flaccos of the world, who view Peyton as more of a peer than like a mentor, say, oh, yeah, I got a text from him, but I don't really need to pick his brain. Maybe Joe should have, but
Maybe.
he chose not to. But Peyton's always just a resource for the quarterbacks. It seems like his role is much bigger than that.
Wow.
Much bigger than that. And I want to hear from Peyton himself. And before we play this clip, because I think we're going to have a lot to talk about this, I just want to give a shout out to our friends over at Vestibule. Henry, this is a really cool program and new company that's going on.
Yes.
As sports fans, we've always had the thought, what would it be like if you could buy stock in athletes? Like, you do that for fantasy football, and it's fun. You try to buy the guy's stock. You try to find, like, the fourth-round guy that's going to turn out to be the first-round guy, but that's just fantasy football. With Vestibule, they are actually letting you buy stock in athletes now. It's the first-of-its-kind investment where fans can invest in an athlete's career with real money and get paid real money through a portion of the athlete's income for doing so. And here's the cool thing. They've got one athlete to start off right now. They're going to add more, and I think they're in the process of adding more right now. But the one athlete might be the perfect athlete to invest in. Broncos linebacker Baron Browning, who's still on a rookie contract. So you get to buy his stock right now on a rookie price. And then let's say he goes out and has double-digit sacks this year. He's on the final year of his deal. Henry, what would he get if he got 10 sacks this year? What would his contract look like?
10 sacks? He probably gets $13 million a year.
I was gonna
for
say
like 4 years,
at least 13 or 15,
Yeah.
maybe even.
Yeah.
You
Depends
could
on how
even
it
be
goes.
$20 million potentially.
Yep. If
Per
he's fighting through double
season.
teams and getting all those, then yeah.
Exactly. And so this might be the perfect time to buy Baron Browning stock and literally get paid for the success that he has. So how you do this, download the Vestibule app, Vestibule app now, or you can scan the QR code on our screen to download the app, and you can buy Baron's IPO. It's live right now, and shares are available for purchase, but they are limited. So download the app to buy Baron Browning shares right now. Really cool program. And we might actually be able to talk about this with Baron himself coming up fairly soon. So stay tuned. It's a really cool program, though. Download the app to check it out and buy that stock.
Yes, and I was really excited to listen to our first Vestibule read. Also, go check out Bet365. I made a mistake
Well,
over the weekend.
it's pretty normal, but
Wow.
Oh, you bet on the
I
Rockies or
haven't
something?
No, I didn't. I was.
Wow.
When was this? This would have been like Friday night, maybe. No, Saturday night. Maybe it was Sunday. It's tough with those 3-day weekends. But I was just laying in bed. Oh, it was the day where I was kind of sick. So that was Friday. Friday, I just like out of nowhere, just like checked out Bet365, see what the odds were, and it was halftime, and the Timberwolves were down like 15 or something, and it was 5-1 odds, and the Rockies were also down with 2-1 odds. I was like, I mean, I could just make a little parlay here. I was like, no, that'd be crazy. And it wound up, it would have been, I was just gonna put like $10 on it, and I would have won $200. So I made a mistake by not betting,
Wow.
which is a real shame. But yeah, they had a whole bunch of cool things over the weekend. I think there was a, maybe it's like staggered by how much you bet. Sometimes they do that, but they offered me like, if you bet $50 over the weekend on parlays, baseball parlays, you get $25 free bet. So there's cool stuff like that over there. They have great odds. And if you use the code DNVR365 when you sign up and you put in $10, you can choose between either a bet and get offer and place a bet of $5 or more and get $150 in bonus bets, or a first bet safety net offer where you can place a bet of up to $2,000. If your qualifying bet loses, you receive a matched refund in bonus bets. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
Okay, so we heard from Peyton last week when he was given the Mizell Award for community service and work in the community. And he was asked about, what's your role and what's it like being an ambassador, I believe is the word that was kind of used, that was tossed out there, which he certainly is an ambassador for the Broncos. And here's some insight that Peyton had, which I found very fascinating.
The team.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's anywhere on my radar by any means. But look, I love being an ambassador, for the Broncos, and for the Colts, for the University of Tennessee. Obviously, living here, I get to go to all the Broncos games, and I was out at the facility the other day. Our kids do sports in the area around Dove Valley, so I'm probably at the facility a couple times a week. have great snacks over there in that kind of cafeteria. So I don't know if I'm being charged for those or what, but great access. And I still have my key fob that still works from when I played. So Keith Bishop never made that go away. So that's helpful as well. But, I'm excited about, still being a part of the team and a part of this community, like I said. But I don't know. I take seriously sort of that role of being an ambassador for all the teams that I played for, but living here in Denver, maybe even more so, and do some stuff with, the Broncos sponsors and some of their suite holders. So I still feel an attachment and really have enjoyed getting to know the Penner Walton family as well. So, but as far as running the team, I don't think that's on my radar anyway.
The team.
Yeah, no.
He's at the Broncos facility how often? A couple of times a week? Mm-hmm. No, you have way more input and influence than anyone thought before then. Unless his little joke about snacks, how good would snacks have to be for Peyton Manning to stop by the Broncos facility a couple of times a week?
They'd be pretty good.
There would have to be like something laced in it.
I do think, though, he always goes to a couple practices. He goes to a couple training camp practices. Like, he has, like, the things that we see, like the community service things where it's like, again, like Wounded Warriors, for example.
Yeah, that's
or,
like twice a year.
Definitely. But then, like, he brought up the suite holders and, like, the corporate sponsors. And so all of a sudden it builds up. And then you throw in, like, I think his kids' football team practices at the indoor practice facility. And so
He said by there. He didn't say at the Broncos facility.
what did he say?
He said that my kid practices by Dove Valley.
Oh, did he say it in there?
yeah.
I missed that part.
Wow,
No,
you
but
were
I mean,
too
like,
busy commenting in the chat.
I know that they have practiced at the indoor practice facility. I'm
Okay.
not sure if it's like every single
Okay.
time, but again, like if it was, then all of a sudden, if we're talking a couple times a week, that's 100 a
Sure,
year.
sure.
You got 30 practices. There's a good chunk, So it's definitely more than you expect to hear,
Yep.
but I don't know that it's all that much more.
Really? So you don't think it's strange that someone that has retired and just calls himself an ambassador, and obviously he's a fantastic ambassador, not just for the Broncos, but the state of Colorado and the entire NFL. That's a reason why he does the Manning cast, is because the NFL wants Peyton Manning's brand as much involved with ESPN and the NFL as possible. You don't think it's strange that someone who is fully retired, not paid by the organization at all, is at that facility multiple times a week? That's like you hanging it up at DNVR, calling it retirement because you have all the money in the world, and you still come by multiple times a week.
Okay, first of all, I would, because like the bar, like I'm here every night for all these playoff games, which rest in peace. But yeah, I mean, it's Peyton though. Like it's different because like they love him there. Like you want him at some point to come talk to the rookies. You want him to do like there's just this whole list of things that just makes sense. And if you're Peyton, I don't know. People don't. It sounds crazy to say like he doesn't have that much going on because everywhere you look, like Peyton Manning's there. But at the same time, like, what do you think Peyton Manning is doing right now?
He's probably at the Broncos facility.
Okay, yeah, that's probably it. But if he's not there, like, I think there's like an 80% chance. No. Let's say 70% chance he's sitting at home, 20% chance he's golfing, and a 10% chance he's doing something else.
There's not a 70% chance Peyton Manning is sitting at home.
There's not a 70% chance at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday after Memorial Day weekend.
Nope.
There's not a 70% chance he's at home.
Nope.
Where is he then?
I don't know. Maybe traveling the world or at the Broncos
He
facility.
was probably at the Monaco Prix.
The Grand Prix?
Yeah.
Did that
He
just
doesn't
happen?
seem like a Grand Prix kind of guy.
He kind of
He
does,
definitely
actually.
seems like a Grand Prix
That's
kind of guy.
That's a fancy event on
An
yachts.
extremely
like,
wealthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, come on. Maybe watching Broncos owner.
He gives off more NASCAR vibes,
Lewis
honestly. Not that he'd
Hamilton.
go to that either.
Maybe with his Tennessee roots. His University
damn
of
it.
Tennessee roots.
I Google Peyton Manning Monaco Grand Prix, and this
And he's
headline
there?
pops up. Peyton Manning says he has no desire to go from, and I was like, oh, please be there. But it was talking. He doesn't want to be GM.
So what Peyton initially was asked with that question was, does he have any desire to be an owner? And he kind of said, like, no, not interested in that right now. I like my role with the Broncos. I like my role with the Colts. I like my role with the Tennessee Titans. I live in Denver. And then we heard the rest of his answer there. I think Peyton would absolutely have an interest to be an owner in an NFL team. You know, the issue is the prices of teams have got just out of control. Where now we're talking about, like, there's only a handful of people that can afford teams now. $6 billion for the Washington Commanders, over $4.5 billion for the Denver Broncos. Like, no matter how successful Omaha Productions is, it's probably never going to be successful enough where he can own a team. So if I couldn't afford an NFL team, Henry, you know what I would say? I'm just not interested in owning one now. I wouldn't say I'm too poor to own an NFL team. I'm just not interested right now.
Yeah, and on top of that, because he has all those other things, you wouldn't really want to be part of an ownership group. Like, that's what somebody was talking about this. I think maybe it was Mike Florio. It's one of those guys who brought up about Tom Brady this week. It's like, yeah, you want to do a really good job as a color guy. Well, if you're the owner, a part owner of the Raiders, you don't get all the access that those guys typically get. Like, you don't get to, like, go to the facility and do all those interviews and do all those sorts of things. Like, there's just a bunch that goes into it.
That's a good point.
And, like, if you're Peyton and you want to do the Manning cast, you probably could do that if you were part owner of a team. But there's just different dynamics in there. And something's going to change behind the scenes. And so it just, all of a sudden, once you have an official loyalty to a team, you don't have the freedom that Peyton currently has to just help everybody out and talk to everybody.
That's fair. That's a really good point. You know, people, especially right after Peyton retired, fans would throw out, like, maybe Peyton could be the quarterback coach. Maybe Peyton could be the offensive coordinator. Maybe Peyton could be the head coach. Maybe Peyton could be the GM. And at that point, it was like, no, he's not going to take, like, those small level roles, work his ass off just to be a quarterback coach or an offensive coordinator for a middling team. He wouldn't even do that for a great team, because Peyton had his eyes set on something more, which I think was ownership, and now I think that's kind of out of the question. But we did hear, I believe it was Adam Schefter about a year ago, he put out a report saying that the Broncos might consider doing something similar with Peyton that they did to Condoleezza Rice, that they did with
Lewis Hamilton?
Yep, Lewis Hamilton, of just giving him a little bit of a stake in this team, whether it was actually gifting him a stake in it, whether it was letting him buy it for a reasonable price, so that he could have, 1% of the team. I think all those people they did it with have 1% of the team, just to have even more of a connection. And so maybe there is still some of that going on. But Henry, I think it's more than that. And let me read you some things that Sean and George Payton said, because I clearly believe that there's more to this than you do. And I want to know if these comments change your mind at all. Here's what Sean Payton had to say about Peyton Manning's involvement with the team. This was right after the draft, so just about a month ago. Sean said, something will happen and Archie will send a text, or Peyton, and he's always thinking. I think when Peyton watches an NBA game and sees something, it's one of those unique traits that he has. He sent me a text after Zach Wilson was traded here, and then after we drafted Bo Nix, and he's always been like 3 steps ahead. He's a great resource. Okay, nothing too much there outside of that. Him and Sean communicate a little bit. But George Payton, I think what he said was even more fascinating. Again, this was just a month ago. George Payton said, it's huge to have someone like that who's close to the organization. I think it's great for all of our players and everyone in the organization. He comes by all the time. We have dinner, so it's outstanding to pick his brain. Obviously, he knows all the quarterbacks. I just don't buy that there's not real football talk and real influence going on from Peyton Manning if he's at the facility multiple times a week, if he's having dinner with the Broncos' top brass, including the general manager, often.
Well, I mean, you have to talk to him about the quarterbacks before the draft. Like, you would be insane not to.
Agreed.
Like, knowing how much he wants to help, because he has a personal relationship with every single one of them.
Yep.
Like the Manning Passing Academy. Like, if you don't, imagine if they hadn't. Also, imagine if he'd started that answer by saying, like, oh, I guess it's kind of cool having Peyton around. It's really no big deal. Like, you have to say, like, it's huge to have Peyton around, because imagine what Peyton would say.
Well, of course, but he didn't have to say he comes by all the time.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's what Peyton said. But I mean, that's the big one, is that if you're drafting a quarterback and you have somebody who wants to help you, who knows all the quarterbacks, you'd be crazy not to talk with him.
So then do you think, and I agree with that, but now do you think that the Broncos have their quarterback situation figured out, that now Peyton's influence and how much they ask from Peyton and about Peyton goes down now that they have that figured out?
I mean, you would hope. Like in a dream world, he has
I disagree.
a 30-minute phone call with Bo Nix every day. That'd be the hope.
Yeah.
I mean,
So then you hope
that's
it doesn't go down.
no, in a perfect world, like he's constantly like, there's just a constant text going with him and Bo Nix from now until Bo Nix is in the Hall of Fame or whatever, you know? Like that's what you want. But obviously that's like an unrealistic use of Peyton's time. So you just hope that he's spending as much time with Bo as you can. And if things go badly, then I would imagine somebody reaches out to Peyton and say like, hey, here's what we see. What do you see? Like, there's things like that.
I don't think anyone has to reach out to Peyton if he's in the facility already all the time.
No, I mean, he would
That's
just
also-
say.
Does he do this with Anthony Richardson too out in the Colts? Does he text him and be like, "Hey man, how can I help you?"
I mean, I'm sure they know each other.
They but not to this extent. There's no chance. Peyton lives about 15 minutes away from the Broncos facility.
Yep.
He lives 15 hours away
More than
from
that.
the Colts
It's gotta
facility.
be more than that.
Yeah, it could be even more than that. So no way he doesn't have that connection. You're absolutely right. You hear that it's so different what's happening here.
Yeah.
I think. And I want to know what the Twitter chat thinks, because obviously Henry and I disagree just about how influential Peyton is and how much to read into this or not. But I'm going all the way in on this. I'm thinking that Peyton is a pretty big time voice with them.
In what
16
way?
hours, by the way, driving.
16 hours.
Yeah.
Not too bad. And what do you mean in what way?
Like, what does he do?
I think with what George has said, and especially I'm buying what you're saying about the quarterback evaluation. And then also I wonder if there's some meetings with Greg Penner, because Peyton's now a business guy as well. Obviously, Greg Penner is an incredible businessman, but maybe he's not just, helping with personnel decisions. He's obviously Sean isn't relying on him to put together game plans, but maybe Sean will ask him a question or two. So I could actually see Peyton as an ambassador having his hand kind of in everything, being a sounding board for building the team with George Payton, with maybe a little bit of game plan with Sean Payton, and then also some business with Greg Penner. I think he is all over this. If you're somewhere multiple times a week, it's not for the free snacks.
Definitely.
It's because they want you to be part of what's going on there, and you want to be part of what's going on there. So it's actually real things that are happening.
Yeah. In terms of personnel, I would imagine he doesn't really have too much sway. Like, if you're signing Josh Reynolds, for example, I don't think Peyton was ever asked, like, what do you think of Josh Reynolds? Like, those things wouldn't come up.
He was their second biggest free agent signing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Exactly. That's my point.
Yeah,
I definitely think
I don't think that's like a thing that Peyton Manning is involved in. Like, Brandon Jones, I don't think they're like, hey, what do you think of Brandon Jones? Or what do you think of cutting Justin Simmons? That would surprise me a little bit.
And maybe it's not every single move, but
quarterback, sure.
Even like George is there, and he's like, hey, what'd you think of Josh Reynolds? Because the Detroit Lions were on TV a lot, and I think he was actually at a Lions game at some point this season too. I
would imagine it was the playoff game where Josh Reynolds dropped 2 balls.
It could have been. I think it was in Detroit, the one I'm thinking of, and that one was in San Francisco.
Oh,
so it wouldn't have been that one.
That was the next one.
But I'm buying into it. And to the extent where I'm thinking like, man, maybe this ownership thing does happen at some point where he gets a very small stake, and that's kind of his involvement in an official capacity for the league or for the Broncos, or maybe it's something that doesn't end up happening. But we got a comment from Logan who says, I live in Indiana. Peyton does stop by and help the Colts out. Plenty. Definitely right about him. Obviously spending more time with the Broncos since they are closer. Yeah, again, Peyton's
Also,
not in Indianapolis multiple times a week.
Also, Jose and Alex make a good point that the team has been really bad. So if Peyton's been involved, maybe you need to get him out.
Well, I'm curious when this transition started. Did it start in 2017 when he started showing up to a couple of training camp practices? But especially in visibility, when we've been able to see him, he's been there more since there's been new ownership. He's been there more since it's been George Paton than it was John Elway. So I do think that the role has changed over the past couple of years when not necessarily the team has been better. I guess the 8-9 record was better, but since there's been more changes at the top of the structure with the organization.
Yeah, and I wasn't around before that, so I don't know what it was like.
You're just gonna have to take my word.
Yeah, but that's what I
know
say.
you
is
don't like doing that.
If you're trying to go get a quarterback, I definitely see what Peyton thinks. I doubt they asked Peyton what he thinks of any of the other moves. In terms of business stuff, like there's definitely things to do there. Especially like the big thing for the Broncos is you just want to have Peyton for marketing reasons. Just because like fans are happy when Peyton's around. Like it's kind of just that simple. And then on top of that, you throw in, like you said, like meeting with the people who buy the suites, meet with the people who, all the corporate sponsors. Like if, I don't know, throw Coors Light, our friends out there. Coors Light has a deal with the Broncos. Let Peyton hang out with Mr. Coors for a day on the golf course. And they'll be like, oh, yeah, we'll give you. Well, I'm sure there's a Mr. Coors in charge there somewhere at Coors. But yeah, like they're just like, yeah, go hang out with him. So I do like 90% of it is like figurehead, be around, be like a positive influence on like whoever we have you talk with in the team. Be a positive influence when you come and talk with the rookies. Just those sorts of things.
So I'm going to say that this turns into an official role at some point. I'm going to take that stance here. And the most likely thing is I think he does eventually get that 1% stake in the Broncos to make this ambassador thing well worth his time and just make it so, yeah, you're officially going to be a Denver Bronco and you're not going to be a Colt anymore. You're officially going to be a Bronco. I think this eventually happens at some point. And honestly, this is one that should have probably happened at the inception when they had these other couple of people do this when they bought the team. I don't know why he didn't. Maybe Peyton was waiting to hold out to see if he could buy a team on his own, and now the prices are just absolutely crazy. But I'm going to say it happens at some point.
What if they do that thing they do with the Raptors out in Toronto, where Drake is the ambassador and that's his official role? Like, they just hired him as an ambassador, and that's what you do all the time.
Peyton doesn't need the paycheck. He also doesn't need to be accountable to anybody.
And that's why I think it would be the ownership stake, because you're right, he doesn't need the money, but like if you get 1% in an NFL team, that is legitimate money then.
Definitely. I wouldn't be surprised if like he just doesn't want to, because you lose all that freedom. Like there might be something that makes more sense to do.
Lewis Hamilton didn't quit his day job.
Well, he doesn't work in the NFL. Like if Lewis Hamilton was like, again, it's the Tom Brady thing, where it's like if you're broadcasting games and you want to talk to people, like,
but Tom Brady's still trying to buy. He's still in the process of becoming a Raiders, and he's still going to be calling games.
Oh, he'll be calling the games, but he won't be allowed to talk to the other team's quarterbacks and those sorts of things. Like that's the concern, is that
that's a much bigger concern though when you are on the Fox national broadcast than you are Peyton Manning doing a Manning cast.
But it trickles down. Like it's not just that; it's that whenever he wants to talk to a quarterback, all of a sudden he's like tied to the Broncos. Like you just lose that freedom, and it's tougher to expand into other roles. Like I just think that, and this is a total guess, but it would make a lot of sense if they wanted Peyton in the first time, and he just said, I don't really want to make this. It's a lifelong commitment, you know? Like this feels like something more likely to happen 20 years from now. You know, like you sell Omaha Productions, make all that money, then you buy into the team and kind of go from there. So it's a weird question. Like, does he ever work for the Broncos? Because you would imagine, I would bet some point Peyton works for an NFL team. And you would imagine that'd be the Broncos, or is a part owner. But that's obviously not a guarantee, because that is very rare. Like Tom Brady, I guess if the Raiders thing actually happens, there it is. But I don't know. I definitely don't think there's any sort of rush. Because I think he just wants to avoid that conflict of interest. I think he's probably pretty happy with how things are going now.
That's totally fair. I think he's really happy with the way everything's going in his life right now, because it's going pretty damn well. Maybe his son is going to be talked about as the next Arch Manning in the NFL, going to Texas or a big program and then being the next hot thing. So we obviously will continue to follow this if there's any updates that happen. But Henry, if I need a snack or a meal, Dove Valley's food inside the Broncos facility is great, but it does not compare to Raisin Cane's. That's where I'm going if I want a snack, if I want a dessert, if I want chicken, that is where I'm going, because Raising Cane's has the best chicken fingers that you can get. Plus, they've got that Texas toast. Plus, they've got the coleslaw. Plus, they've got the biscuits. They've got it all over at Raising Cane's, where if you want Raising Cane's, you got to order through the app or on their website over at raisingcanes.com, because Raising Cane's is so popular. Typically, the line is pretty long, and if you order on the app, it helps cut down that wait time. They have delicious chicken fingers, so that's where I would go. The hand-battered chicken fingers over at Raising Cane's are craveable. They're cooked to order just for you, and they're served up fast. So if you want the Texas toast, which is buttery, the crinkle-cut fries, which are crispy, or the delicious creamy coleslaw with that cane sauce on your chicken fingers, go to raisingcanes.com or download their app so you can order before you get there. Raising Cane's chicken fingers, one love.
And go get yourself a Coors Light. I know this weekend was a big weekend for Coors Light
Yes.
with Memorial Day, but every day can be a good day for Coors Light. It's the beer that is meant to chill, so when you're trying to chill, it is your best option. You can make the most out of the times that you choose to fill if you choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
We got a lot of people rocking and rolling with us right now. If you are, make sure to hit us with a thumbs up on YouTube. We've also started to go live on Twitter, and the experience is just better on YouTube. So if you're watching on Twitter and you want to comment, you want to see the comments, you want a higher quality stream, make sure to head over to YouTube. We've got the link over on our Twitter account as well. So click on that. It helps us out. And then hit us with that thumbs up. We really, really appreciate it. Henry, there might be a change coming to the NFL very soon. And I'm curious what you think about it, because it is polarizing. Tom Pelissero this morning dropped the news that the NFLPA is right now devising a change and an alteration to the offseason program, which would impact training camp. What Tom Pelissero says is, end of OTAs, the NFL Players Association is working to finalize a proposal to overhaul the offseason starting as soon as 2025, eliminating voluntary on-field work in the spring in favor of a longer training camp ramp-up, with players reporting in mid-June to early July. So what it is right now is once the season ends, players are off until about the middle of April. Then a 9 to 10 week voluntary program starts, where there's 3 different phases. The first phase is a couple of weeks long, where it's just workouts. Like, you are in the gym with the team, but that's all it is. The second phase, you're on the field, but no real football is being played. It's like walk-through pace with also working out. And then the third phase is what we're in right now, which is called OTAs, which is the closest thing to football that you see until pads actually come on during training camp. Those are the practices that we watch. We're going to watch one on Thursday and then report to you guys everything we see. And then at the very end of that, there's one mandatory part. So the first 8 or 9 weeks are voluntary. Then that final one, mandatory minicamp, which is 2 weeks from now, will happen. And that's the only part of the offseason that's mandatory. So what Tom Pelissero is saying is the NFL Players Association is thinking of wiping all of this out. So there's nothing from when the season ends until training camp starts. But here's the catch. Training camp typically starts in late July right now. Now, according to Tom, it would start in middle of June or early July. What are your initial thoughts, Henry?
I mean, it depends on... They said they worked with doctors to figure it out. And if they worked with doctors, I trust them. But, you know, it's all about the injuries. And the other piece of it is that you probably get that 18th regular season game as part of it. And so, in theory, this is like what the NFLPA is demanding in exchange for replacing a preseason game with an 18th regular season game. And if that's what if they think it's a good deal, then like I kind of take their word for it. It definitely makes for a long season if you're getting there in, like, if it really is the middle of June, then you're there July, August, September, October, November, December, and then into January. So really it's like 7 months. and then you have the playoffs, which is a really long. That's just a really long time to be going at it. So
for a physical sport.
Definitely. And like you take away a month and a half of that and put it in the spring and it just breaks things up a little bit. But yeah, it just for me personally, if I was playing, I would much rather have that like the two breaks instead of just the one, because that would just be a long time to only be thinking about football.
Yeah, to me, this feels like the NFLPA only talked to doctors, because what Tom Pelissero goes on to say is that this is to help with injury risks, because you ramp up in the spring, you get your body ready, then you have a 5 to 6 week break until you start training camp. And apparently the doctors say that that's not ideal to avoid injuries. We've unfortunately seen it with Tim Patrick these past 2 years. And other teams have had some serious injuries heading into training or at the beginning of training camp, just like Tim as well. But this does not sound like they talk to the players themselves, because when I first heard this, my first reaction was, wait, the NFLPA, the Players Association, is the one that's presenting this? Henry, training camp is already too long anyways. Like, when we're 10 days into training camp, that's when players are saying and coaches are saying, like, our guys are just tired of hitting each other right now. It's time for other competition. So now we're talking about an additional month to 6 weeks of this, and now there would be more of a build up to training camp, so it'd probably be more so workouts the first couple of weeks. But this to me makes no sense from a player's perspective standpoint. I think everyone would dislike this, so I'm really curious. Tom says that they're putting this together to see if it can start the beginning of next year so that there's no offseason program. I just would be surprised, and he says that the NFLPA has reached out to a lot of players, and the majority of them support this change. That shocks me, because they're just getting rid of summer. And I've seen a lot of people online saying, like, man, everyone would hate this because of summer. You get like 6 weeks of summer. If you have a family, that's time you get to spend with your family. Now that's eliminated. That's kind of just like a cherry on top for me. I think for me, it's the grind. You talked about it, how much longer of a season that is. I would be really surprised if actually the majority of players wanted this.
Yeah, it's just a long time to lock in. And it's different than like extending training camp though, because training camp is when like you're stuck in the hotel and you have like your really long days. That's when you start putting on pads and do all that sort of stuff. Like with this, it, like you said, a lot of like classroom stuff, a lot of like just working out. And then even at this point in OTAs, like they're not wearing pads or anything. They're only going 3 days a week. And so I wonder, it's tough because they say it would start mid-June to early July. And so right now you've got this 9-week off season, like 9 weeks of classroom stuff and workouts and all that. And if it really starts mid-June, then you go the second half of mid-June, or second half of June is 2 weeks. You add in 4 weeks in July. So you're probably looking at like 6 weeks, maybe 7 weeks in exchange for the 9 weeks you're doing before.
Right.
And so worst case scenario, you're getting 2 more weeks of free time.
Sure.
And I'd imagine that's by condensing things, because right now they only go in 3 days a week.
Yep.
And like they could go in to work out or do whatever, but technically they have to be there, or they volunteer to be there 3 days a week. You could kind of condense that and shorten it. And if you put it all together, it does save you time.
Sure.
Total, but I don't know. It's just a long time. One
big but with that, because you're right. That's how it would be presented in like a positive way. Is it's actually less time in the year that you are with the team, so you get more time off. But the first 8 to 9 weeks of this in the off season are voluntary. Now they're quote unquote voluntary. You better be there, or else you're gonna get talked about a lot, like Courtland Sutton. He's not there. He has missed absolutely nothing that is mandatory. He has been fined not a single dollar, because what he is missing is voluntary right now. But if it was like truly, truly, truly voluntary, you think like 50% of the people would be there.
Yeah.
And then if a lot of guys aren't there, it's not a big deal. That's just not the case in the NFL anymore. I think it's been described in the past as, if you want to be on the team, you're there. Henry, if I said you can show up for work tomorrow, it's voluntary, but if you don't, you're going to lose your job. Does that feel voluntary?
I also think the NFL definitely could not say that.
No,
But
no. It's known.
It's voluntary.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
It's implied.
Todd's back. You don't need me.
Oh, wow. No, Henry, we need you.
Yeah.
So would training camp, though, you think that would be voluntary? No freaking
training
way.
camp wouldn't. No.
Yeah,
no
no way.
I wonder what they do at the beginning, like those first couple weeks. It'd just be very different, and it just seems like a big gamble. And again, if the Players Association wants it, and the NFL says that's a good deal to go get, an 18th game. If everybody's agreeing, and the fans would obviously agree because they get the 18th game. So I don't know who's saying no to this, other than I guess like me and you, because it means we don't really have a summer.
I think, I mean, yeah, definitely.
Other than us, I think everybody likes it.
I personally wouldn't want. No, I don't think coaches want. I don't think anyone in the building will want it.
Coaches might not. Yeah.
Coaches don't want it because that is like they are given those 5 weeks off.
True.
And now typically, like coaches can't have any contact with players during that time. So what ends up happening is coaches stay like 1 week after the offseason program's done and come back like a week or so before training camp starts. So coaches, that's the only time that they really get time off, and it's like 3 weeks off. Now, no one's going to go cry that coaches a river that are having a dream job getting paid millions of dollars, although a lot of the coaches aren't. It's mainly just the head coach and the coordinators. And no one's going to cry a river for players who are getting paid millions of dollars that now, instead of having and now they get 2 more weeks off, but they just have to show up earlier. I totally understand that. No one's going to be sad for us that we get to cover more of training camp that just starts earlier. I just am surprised that at least to Tom Pelissero's reporting, he's saying that players would be okay with this. That does surprise me because of the length of the season, but maybe it does. This is the bridge with an 18th game. And maybe that's something that we're seeing an 18th game come as soon as next year, which would be wild.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've said before, like, I think the 17th game was kind of a bad idea.
So do you think an 18th game is an even worse idea?
I think it probably makes more sense than 17 just because you get the balanced schedule. But I also think, I can't remember exactly this year, but what the year before it was the Dolphins had did they have the crazy start and then miss the playoffs?
Yeah.
Yeah, where it's like that's...
No, it was the opposite. They had a really bad start.
Yeah,
and then
that's what it was.
hot.
That's what it was. And so you wind up like you probably should have been out. It just means that every game matters less. Like you can start so slowly, and people say like it shouldn't matter because it's 17 games, but I feel like it you've seen it in a couple of those examples of teams where like that kind of should have been it. And it's cool, like you give them a second chance, but I don't know. I kind of like the way it was before. And I used to, after that first season, I had like a few examples of teams. I just haven't thought about it much, but might as well.
And KW in the Toyota chat says they'll need 2 bye weeks if they go to 18 games. Yeah, 100%. But then that would make it so the Super Bowl falls on President's Day weekend. That's in the middle of February. So then the Super Bowl is on Sunday, and then the majority of the country has Monday off. That's absolutely how it should be. But now, what are we talking about, Henry? We're talking about making the season that much longer. So now the season, for people that are in the business, it goes from the middle of June to the middle of February. That's a lot different than what it was just a couple of years ago. So it's going to be interesting to follow, and we'll continue to break that down. But Henry, there's something else that you wanted to get to today.
Yeah, the other rule change, and I guess this one we found out about last week, is that the chain gang might just be gone. And that's a change that could happen this year, which is kind of strange. And the idea is they have, what do they call it? The optometric?
No
something
idea.
like that.
Optometrists? They have eye doctors on the sideline?
Maybe it's optical something. Point is, they tested it out in 2 stadiums. They tested it out in the Meadowlands, and they tested out Hard Rock last year. And basically, they're able to, I think it must just be cameras. They track the football, because that's the idea, is like the optical point was that like it can see the ball, and then it tells you where the ball is. And so you can get it exactly right. So it fixes spotting the ball. There's no more like bringing the chains in from the sideline to measure it, because you have everything measured already. And they're testing it in the preseason, which means and what they said was that if it goes well in the preseason, they're implementing it this year in the regular season. And so that would be the end of people coming in off the sideline to put the sticks in the ground and measure.
So no more drama, huh?
Yeah, no more drama.
We don't get to see like the number of inches that it is, how far away they are. They still would have the chain gang as a backup, at least in the preseason and probably for this year.
More so for like people on the field to see.
Right.
It's like how far do we need to
Coaches
go?
and everything.
Yeah.
My take on this is it's about damn time. Henry, with all the technology things we can do right now, we haven't had technology which can like do the most simple thing of just tracking where the ball is and how close it is to a first down. This is so basic, and if you want to have the chains still on the sideline for a visual for coaches, sure, totally fine. But let's get it right with exactly where the ball is down. This is the easiest thing they could do. I completely agree with it. I just hope this incorporates end zones. Did the ball cross the plane of the end zone? This should 100%. This should be the first step, is making sure that the ball crossed the end zone, because that's the most important first down and marker that we have in this game. So put chips in the balls, make sure we know exactly where it is, and then
they've always had them.
Yeah, and so
they've
then
been
use
chipped
them
for forever.
Yeah,
The thing is with the chip though, what part of the ball do you put the chip in?
the whole thing. Make the whole ball a chip.
You just put one in the
I don't
back.
think that's how chips work.
You can put one in the front end and the back end of the ball, and you're good to go there.
What if it winds up sideways?
That's why
like
the whole-
in the bulge.
That's
The
why the
bulge.
whole thing is a ball.
Yeah.
The bulge.
The bulge.
I
What do you
mean,
know about bulges.
Dude, all I'm saying is,
Oh, boy.
all I'm saying is soccer can do it, and it's a round ball. You could also do it with football. Like,
there's
it's
also not
possible.
as much traffic in soccer. You know, like
Traffic.
if this is cameras, imagine a QB sneak, and you've got to figure out where the
Even
where the
more
ball
so,
is.
why there has to be a chip just everywhere in a ball.
But they're not doing the chip. They're using the optical tracking.
But that's what I'm saying. They need to incorporate this at some point very
Yeah.
soon.
Yeah,
Have a heat
I wonder
radiation.
how
I don't know.
It would just that's the thing though, is like in theory, yes, but like actually, and that's my concern with this too, is like what happens when you just can't see the ball? Like how do you know when the knee is down, like where it goes? Like it's I'm sure that they have thought about all this and figured it out, and if they have, awesome, this makes way more sense. But as soon as you start having issues with it, people are going to really hate when the computer does the wrong thing.
Well, then, the point of this, I have to imagine, that the computer never does the wrong thing. You're taking human error and error out of this, but that's probably why, at least, it's a testing system to start for preseason to see how it goes. And let's say there are a lot of mistakes, then they don't implement it
And
for
they
the
used it
regular
last
season.
year. So
Yeah.
they think it
Right,
works.
right.
But I just don't know.
And then you still have the chain
X-ray
gang
cameras, like
as
it just
some backup. Yeah,
I would think optical means you're not messing around with too much of that sort of technology. Like you would the cameras would see the ball. But
And
again, like how do you like matching that with when the knee is down and stuff?
It's a great question.
It's really difficult.
And I don't know that, but if we can fly to the moon and do all of the things that we're using science for, I have
Yeah.
to imagine we can track a damn football
But also they
and see
put-
if it crosses the end zone.
But also they put that AI in Google, and all of a sudden, all the answers are wrong. You know, like
yeah.
what's this one? Can cockroaches? Oh, that's
oh,
old
yeah,
dark.
yeah. That one. I
they
saw that one.
Live in your body. It says over the course of your year, 5 to 10 cockroaches will crawl into a very specific part of your body. I hate that this is the first thing that came up, but like that's what the computers are doing right now. Like all it takes is one big mistake from that, and all of a sudden, I don't know.
and
Like
This is
you
what
got to be really
that's
sure.
Also, common people AI, they have like advanced corporation AI, which is a lot better than what we get.
Oh, okay.
I would think so. And the NFL is a multi-billion dollar organization. Every single year, I feel like we can get the right technology. But they're still going to have the backups of the chain gang there. So I like that at least we're trying this out. And if it really doesn't work, then it really doesn't work. But like in the MLB, why there's not just a strike zone that is determined and tracked by cameras blows my mind. It's the same thing with the NFL for me. So that's where I
Yep.
stand with it.
But get like baseball, it's just so easy because it's so clean.
Yeah.
Like there's no timing or anything like that. Like imagine, because like it is subjective. Like when does the knee touch the ground? And so like you can't. In baseball, it's just where did the ball go? Where did the ball go? Like they could probably track that since like the 90s, the 80s. You know, like that's an easy one that you put in. The NFL again, like when there's bodies on top of people and. Did he step out? You would think would be an easy question, but you'd need to program all this into the system. Whoever built this, if it actually works, is a genius.
Yeah, I don't think it's that hard. Not that I can do it. So? There's just a lot of people that are a lot smarter than I am that deal with technology that's way more complicated than tracking a stupid football right now. I think that should be an easy thing. I would think so.
Against soccer, you can track easily because you don't have to deal with the stop. Like there's no like what time. It's just where did the ball go? Like that's easy because it's wide open.
You also haven't seen VAR that they measure to the millimeter of the person if they're offside or not, which it's a lot harder than you think because of the angle that they have. I just think it's possible to track an actual football if you have a chip in it, plus the optic cameras, plus all these things added together. It makes it a lot easier.
But I mean, yeah, that stuff definitely you can do. But again, as soon as you're tracking a football, the fullback is carrying like this and trying to say exactly down to the millimeter where it went at that time. Like I'm not gonna. The chip doesn't. I don't think the chip is gonna help. They're not chipping it anyway. There's no reason to talk about chips. Like I don't know.
They've already chipped it. You said.
Oh yeah, they put the chip in, but
so what are you talking about? Not chipping it when they've already chipped it?
Well, because they're not using the chip to tell you where the ball is.
Do you like chip shots?
Chip shots. What?
You know what a chip shot is?
Like
a chip shot's like an easy field goal. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
He's coming out for a 29-yard chip shot right
okay,
now.
like that. Again, but that starts with golf, and then
Oh, is it cheap? I don't know. I thought it was a chip shot.
Chip.
Yeah.
It's chip.
I think it comes from golfing, though. Anyways, we got to hop into the Super Chats and talk to the people. We got one coming from KB82 who says, Damari Mathis showed a lot his rookie season, and now he sucks. What happened? What are your thoughts on Riley Moss? KB82, it's a great question, a good point. I think Riley Moss is going to be the Broncos' starting cornerback opposite Pat Surtain. I think you're going to have Jaquan in the slot just like he was last year, and I think Riley's going to take that step up. But I do think that Damari still has a chance there. But yeah, last year was really, really tough. And he has the physical tools. It's just going to be all about the mental because he had a really, really tough start to his rookie season when he had 4 pass interference penalties in the first game that he played major minutes in. And then he really bounced back and was really good. And then last year really struggled to the point where he was benched. So it's just going to be all about that mental makeup to see if he can hang back in there and have that punch back to the NFL. But I think it's going to be Riley Moss getting that start.
Yeah, I think Riley Moss would definitely be the good bet. There's first of all, there was a lot of off coverage last year, which is not good for a cornerback's numbers generally. And so it starts with like a bunch of easy catches underneath that are just kind of a part of the system. And that's one of the big things I really hope changes this year. From there, though, it just kind of expanded to... Like, I'm just looking through my notes from some of these games. Like, there were some missed tackles in there. There were at least a few times where he was in the right spot but just didn't break the ball up. There are a few times where he wasn't in the right spot. Again, like, there's just... This one from the Jets game, I have him with a 32-yard catch where just couldn't keep up with the guy in the deep crosser. Again, like other note, quarterback had too much time, so he had time to get all the way across the field, and then he didn't lay out for it. So I think the big thing is when he's in position, he just needs to break the ball up. That's where it starts, and then on top of that, I think he, along with everybody else, just had those plays where they're not doing their job. Like you're kind of gambling on something underneath, or you see something else coming free over the top. And so he was in, for the most part, during that horrible stretch for the entire defense where it was just chaos. So I think that he was in kind of a tough spot coming in as a starter for the first time, like entering a season as a starter. And when things didn't go well, he just hadn't been in that situation, didn't really know how to fix things. So I'm not totally out on him, but Riley Moss is definitely the guy you'd look at.
Someone we're totally in on. Our last super chat coming in from Ryan, who says, I wish we had Peyton Manning back as quarterback. Man, do I miss those times.
Yeah.
We do too. It would have been so much fun if DNVR was around when Peyton was tearing the league up. We already have so much fun on this show anyways. With Peyton tearing it up, it would have been an absolute blast. Henry, this show has been a blast. Thank you all for rocking and rolling with us to start your short week. We appreciate it. We're going to be back tomorrow with a very interesting conversation about Marvin Mims in the wide receiver room. We have some projections we want to throw your way. We'll see you tomorrow at 11 a.m. Oh, we got one more from KW82. He says, is DJ Jones worth his money? His play has fallen off. Well, now he's got some significant help around him, so it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, I don't think his play has fallen off.
All right, that's all we have time for. Thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow.
We all silly like the mayor.